Welcome to our pod. And by that, I mean on Wednesdays we read. I'm Hannah.
I'm Laura.
And we are two best friends who happen to be finishing up Shai'tan on the Wheel of Time, season 1 of our podcast.
Celebrate good times. Come on.
It only took us, a year and 3 months to do.
Yeah, but honestly, that's like a huge accomplishment because this book series is so long, and I never would have even gotten through 6 of these books in a year.
No. We really just went to town on these books. 1 a month. 2 breaks. I think you and I took 2 breaks, and that's it. And that is impressive. I'm impressed with us. So, that
I'm proud of us.
I'm so proud of us. This feels like such an accomplishment. Like, give yourself a pat on the back.
Honestly, it is a big accomplishment. And for anyone who's like read along with us or who has finished the series in record time, congratulations, because this is a huge series. The books are so long. It's just a lot.
I know. There's someone was talking to us and they were like, I can never get past the second one. And I'm like, I get it.
The second one was not as bad as it gets farther along, in my opinion, but I felt like 1 through 5 were very easy for me to read, but past that, it was much harder.
I would definitely agree with that. And it was, we definitely had our challenges. We had our moments of, I want this to be over. Can we be done?
Oh yeah.
And did we once or twice ask the question, are you doing okay? Do you need us to stop?
Do we need to stop reading this series?
Because we make the rules, literally.
It's our pod, so
it's our pod.
We can do what we want.
We know we ask the listeners a lot of questions, but it is in fact our pod. It's the name of the show. So
we appreciate feedback, but ultimately
it's our decision.
Our decision.
Our decision, our pod. But we have had people be like, you can just stop if you wanted to. We're like,
can't stop one step. And we didn't stop. We're
like finishing up season 1. It's crazy to think like how far we've come, how many friends we've met along the way, and how often we ask the question, what was Robert Jordan thinking?
More importantly, is Harriet okay?
Is Harriet okay? The question of the season, and one we will live with for many, many years. Poor Harriet.
You know what? I'm gonna say good for her for all the money she's gonna be raking in with the TV series, and probably now the books being kind of rejuvenated in everyone's minds.
I know,
because of the TV series, because I've seen a lot of people on Bookstagram talking about Wheel of Time because of the TV series, that they wanted to read it because of this and everything. So I'm sure Harriet's doing quite well. But
Laura also for her stuff. Laura also will tell you that you don't need to read the book series.
No, because the TV show is canon. So
yeah, TV show's canon. And listen to all our pod episodes. We tell you pretty much everything that happens, except I'm sure there's going to be something where we're like, who is that character in the TV show? And people are like, oh my God, they were only mentioned every 5 pages. And it's like, well, that's fair enough.
Yeah, it'll be someone I'm like, who is that? And they're like, oh, that's one of such and such of the Forsaken. Oh yes, right. Him.
It's been a long journey to the Wheel of Time, and the wheel will keep on turning, but we will not be turning back to these
Unfortunately,
books.
We're not getting spit out in the next turning of the wheel.
We will not be revisiting these books. So this is like, in essence, our ending episode of the books. We may do bonus episodes on the TV show.
Yeah, I'm more than happy to cover some more of the TV show.
Right. Very good. But this will just be a little ending to it. So with that said, Laura, should we dive into some listener questions?
Yeah. What did people have to ask us?
Yes. Well, this first part, we're going to let people know that if you guys are just fans of the first half of the pod, join us for this beginning. We'll try to tell you when we dive into like more spoilery details. We'll do a couple overview questions just so you guys can learn a little bit more about our pod if you're just joining on this season finale of the Wheel of Time. Some people always love
to jump in on the season finale, but okay.
Some people like listening to like, is the book series worth it? Is it this? Who's your favorite character when I dive in? Like things like that. And then we'll try to keep that spoiler free, and then we will tell you guys when to turn it off, and like a light switch, just go click. It's a cute little Mormon trick. And
Had to give that nod to our favorite Mormon.
Our favorite. Whose life was done in the Book of Mormon. That is canon on this podcast.
That is about Brandon Sanderson, that musical.
Obviously.
Yes.
But diving in, our first question brought to us by Sandra of Story Darlings fame. Was this worth it? Was the book series? Yes.
I think so.
Yeah, I think so too. I think Laura and I talked about it. I think that there's two different ways to answer this question. It's like, was it worth Laura and I diving into a 14-book series and doing a podcast on it? Yes, very much so. Is the book series worth reading, Laura?
I am iffy on that. So I know Hannah is like very like nervous about like suggesting books and stuff like this. She's mentioned it several times how nervous she got about suggesting the series and how she like felt bad about it and everything because I was like, oh, I don't like this book series. But honestly, how could she have known, first of all? And secondly, it was just like a fun opportunity for us to be able to do a deep dive on a series that is very well beloved by people and is considered one of the kind of like cornerstones of fantasy, honestly.
Right.
And I think it was kind of good for me to read some high fantasy because I usually do not read anything of this caliber of fantasy. So it was kind of eye-opening to read something like this. And then I just really enjoyed getting to talk with Hannah about it and kind of go in depth on the themes and different characters and kind of recognizing, okay, well, this was definitely written in the 90s.
Yeah.
That's what it is. Okay. But yeah, I'd say it was worth it. What about you?
Yeah, I Laura's right. I'm a very nervous person. I like to tell people, I recently mentioned to my roommate, like, oh, I enjoy meal prepping for her because I know what she likes. And I always like doing things for people. If people don't know, I just gave Laura a birthday gift and it was awesome. It was 30 different books that I wrapped up in their blind dates with the book. But like, I enjoyed doing that because I knew it would make her happy. Even if all the books didn't like work for her, I knew like it didn't matter. Sometimes it's about making the person happy. And so like, I enjoy doing that. So I don't want to give anyone pain. Making people happy is one of my favorite things to do. So telling people like definitely read this book when I know how painstaking it was for us in different parts.
Yeah, it's hard for me to recommend it and be like, is this series worth reading? You know, there's a lot of people on Instagram that I've posted different pictures of the books and like brief reviews, and people have been like, this is the best book series ever, like my favorite of all time. And you know what? To each their own. Like people can have different takes on books. That's fine. And as long as it's not like you
disrespectful or
as long as it's not harmful to people, like you're not saying Chuan is my favorite character because I think that she's very kind and awesome. Like, as long as you don't take that take.
Or if like you hear us say like the women in this book could have been treated better and you're like, that's not true. Women were treated so much better. It's like,
it was fine. They were treated better than the men.
Right.
But, that I don't get on board with. But, you know, I also read problematic books and enjoy them. So I've gone on record multiple times saying, I really like Agatha Christie's writing. Very problematic. Very problematic.
And you recognize it. So I think that
So I think people can, if you can read this and, you know, separate out the sections of the book that are not great and recognize like, okay, this is a work of fiction and we shouldn't be taking this as a feminist text and just like calling it the greatest thing ever. I think that's fine. You can read things and have fun and enjoy them.
Right. And I will also say that this book kind of started me on a relationship with audiobooks because of the time crunch we were on each month. Anna is famously a procrastinator, and I often had to like finish these books in a week. I was not going to read an 800-page book in a week. I mean, unless it is R.F. Kuang's Babel, but these particular books I could not have read in a week. And I often would do them via audiobook, and the audiobooks are great. If you want to read
the narrators are really good.
So good, besides their whole mispronunciation of certain names book to book. But
as far as their acting, their voice acting is very good. They're a married couple, Michael Kramer and Kate Redding. and they do a great job, a really great job. We've often made fun of them for changing the name pronunciations, but that's like very minor compared to the incredible work that they do for the series. I mean, it's just really good. So kudos to them.
Right. So if like you read, I would say like read the first book through the maybe even third, but I also did audio by the time we hit the third book. I think I did it for all because I reread the first two. But
I did a mix for all of them. So
you did a much more mix. So like I would say like if you're not feeling it, there's nothing wrong with being like, I'm just gonna like see how I feel about the audio if you want to finish them. Because I do think the audiobooks were very worthwhile. And
also, honestly, I will say I think the first 5 are on YouTube. Go
nice.
quickly before they check them down after they hear me say this and then remove them.
Famously, YouTube listens to us. So.
Yes, they're listening.
But
go now, listen to them.
I don't know if I would like recommend this to everyone. I would say like if you're someone who wants to read these books, definitely I don't want to like deter you from it. But if you're someone who is like, am I missing out on the best fantasy of all time? I
would say no.
Yeah,
but like, I would also say like if you watch the TV series and you were kind of into comparisons between books and TV shows or books and movies, that would maybe be something that would be interesting if you were first a fan of the TV series and then decided to read the books. I would be interested in the take on that. But
I'd agree.
As far as it being the best fantasy series,
yeah, but it was fun. It was fun what we did. It was fun reading through all these, and we're glad we did it. So I think that's the best thing. I don't think like you're gonna get through them and you're like, I just wasted so many years of my life. But we're not going to say this is the best series in the world.
No, and I think we definitely had fun with several of the books, and even in the books that we didn't enjoy, there were several fun moments that we had reading through these. So it's not that the books are unenjoyable by any means.
Well, I think we've become a little bit like more learned about books as time went on. And so we like, you always think about books in a different way as you become like a bigger critic. So I think that was probably working against us sometimes, where a lot of people who just want to read and have fun with a book, they're going to be like, oh my gosh, they just like went into these books. And it's like, we had to discuss these in depth for a month.
So we definitely got a lot harder on them versus like me just reading a Fredrik Backman book and being like, this is awesome.
So good. I have no critiques. So I do
10 out of 10.
That's probably, I would say like if people are just looking for a fun little escapism, like, sure, I could see where a lot of these would be fun. So
exactly.
Overall, definitely read it if you're interested and see how you feel, but never feel pressured to continue reading it. So this is a question from Veronica, and she's asked a couple of us. Number one fan, Ronnie reads regularly. A lot of books have a lot of like people coming back or doing reboots on television shows. But if we could choose an author, because like Brandon Sanderson finished the series, if we could choose an author to reboot this series or write this series instead of Robert Jordan and Brandon Sanderson, who would it be and why?
You go first.
Okay, so because it's fantasy, I want to make sure that, like, I'm probably more detailed into fantasy writers, and this book is very white. So if it were changing it up and making people like much more diverse, I could see a bunch of different people, but this is a pretty Western book and a lot of 90s people. I actually think V.E. Schwab could do some fun with this. I think she would make it lighter and shorter, which was also a huge critique we had of it. And I think she would do well with like kind of the soft fantasy elements of this high fantasy and update some things and make the women a little bit more dynamic and a little bit like she would have done well with the strong-willed from what I've seen in her writing. Laura and I also aren't like key figures in the fantasy world, so we may not be the most equipped to answer this question. But we love R.F. Kuang. We've said that many times. I would say like I'm most interested in seeing a woman take on this book series because of the whole feminine versus masculine thing. A huge critique we had of this was it often felt like men thought leadership always had this masculine element to it, and it doesn't. So I would have been interested to see a woman's take on the powers, the different types of powers, the different like connection people have with warders. I think would have been a little bit more interesting coming from a woman, and far less spanking scenes because So I think no matter
weird.
what, I don't know if I have a particular author who I'm like, I love her work and she should be doing it, but I don't think I would be interested in seeing another white man take on the series, because we saw two white men take on the series. So I'm more interested in seeing a woman or someone. And if, like, I guess, sorry for this long-winded answer, but if we could reboot the series, I would almost be more interested in seeing it from the perspective of people who weren't just like Western culture people. So if we saw it from a different perspective from the beginning and the outset, and like there was almost, because in the first book, soft spoilers, but you hear about like this one potential dragon and he comes on the scene and he's really powerful. And I think it would be interesting to see that from an outside perspective and kind of have that person like in the wings for a really long time and then come in later. I think that would be very interesting in its take. And that's kind of a long-winded answer. But Laura, what about you?
Okay, so I have two authors in mind, actually. One, I have read some of their work, and then the other I have not. But I just did a little research on this author, and they're on my TBR and on my radar. So the first one that came to mind when I saw this question was Shelley Parker Chan.
Oh, yeah.
We read She Who Became the Sun earlier this year, and I just think that Chan would be able to handle a lot of the fighting scenes, a lot of the politics really well. And I think that they could handle the fantasy elements of the story fairly well too.
Right.
And so that was the first person that came to mind. The second author that I kind of did some research to figure out, like, okay, who would be able to cover this? And the second author that I think would do a really good job, because I think they would bring in some more of the darker elements and maybe cover some of like the Forsaken and some of the things that we were like, okay, these people are a bunch of goons in this series. Why can't they make them a little more serious?
Right.
Would be Tamsyn Muir, who wrote Gideon the Ninth.
That's an interesting take.
And I think it would be more diverse too, if either of those authors wrote the series. So I have not read any of Muir's work, but just kind of looking into Gideon the Ninth and what that's about and that series, I think that Tamsyn would be able to really do a good job with a retelling of the Wheel of Time. And I would be really, really interested to see how that whole series would be.
Yeah, that's a really interesting take. I would say, like, after reading Tamsyn's stuff, one critique I have of Gideon the Ninth that I think like sometimes Robert Jordan had was sometimes Tamsyn Muir is not as like clear with her writing. And so sometimes I think that might be muddled, but I do think that's a really interesting thought. She definitely has a different writing style than Robert Jordan. So I would be interested. I like that Laura does research and I'm just like, I want someone who has a different vibe.
Well, I can't really say too much about Muir because I have not read any of her work, but I just did some research on what the book was about, what Gideon the Ninth was about, and kind of their style. And I was like, yeah, that would be really interesting. So,
No, I like that. I like that take. And I actually have read Tamsyn Muir. So I really like that after knowing their work. And I do think it would be a much weirder novel, which I think Robert Jordan could have done with this series. Like I didn't think it had to be as straightforward as it was.
Yeah.
And I do think Tamsyn Muir is a little bit more adept at that kind of writing. So great suggestion, Laura. And I'm glad you thought about it more than I did. I was just like, oh, walk in and have an answer.
This was the only question I knew about beforehand. And I thought it was so good. So I was like, I'm going to kind of go in depth on this. Do a little research.
Good for you.
Per usual.
Of course. Okay, next question. If another book came out in 10 years, would you read it?
Okay. Is the book answering questions that were kind of left unanswered? Such as, who is the other person? No, wait, I won't spoil. I will not spoil. If the book answers questions that were kind of left unanswered, it was like I don't know, like a unauthorized Wheel of Time where Brandon Sanderson answers a bunch of questions as he's reading off Robert Jordan's notes, maybe. But if it's just like another Wheel of Time book, probably not. I would not read anymore.
Yeah, I would say that guessing on Brandon Sanderson's work, if there was another one, it's more likely to be like a continuation of like so-and-so's children or another. Yeah, and I think the answer is no. I don't think I'm interested. I'm glad the story is done. I don't think there's anything left to be said like that would actually be answered. So I don't think I would probably read. If we were still doing this podcast in 10 years and there was another book, I could maybe see us being like, I guess we have to cover it. But I think we would both, it would be pulling teeth.
And you know what? Maybe in 10 years, we would be reflecting upon this experience fondly and being like, let's just read it for giggles. And I could see that happening as well. But if it was like released fairly soon, I can see us being like, let's wait 10 years to read it.
Yeah, I think we would just be like, yeah, we're going to wait. We're going to see how we feel. And we're not going to rush this at all.
Right.
So there's your answer. Probably not. This is something from Turtle Mountain Kombucha, which made me giggle because it is someone's actual like business account that they just asked this question on. And they asked, Jordan's sexist, right?
Short answer, yeah.
Yeah. That was kind of, I said, like, just so you know, like we talked for about 60 episodes on yeah. But before people are like, oh my gosh, they hated all these books. He's sexist in the way that like 90s people were sexist.
Yeah.
And like, or 90s people who did not ask the right questions. Because I'm sure there were many feminists and people who, you know, intersectional feminism was a thing back then. Sure. People just didn't recognize it. It's like the way privileged people are sexist in the 90s and Robert Jordan like went on record that he was like, I'm trying to build a feminist society. And it's like, okay, but
and it's one of those, I think what you're getting at, Hannah, is it's one of those things like from a 2022 perspective to look back on a book that was written many years ago, like 30 years ago, it's hard to be like, oh yeah, this is someone who's pretty sexist, but probably at the time it was not considered to be that sexist.
That's if Reddit were a thing back in the 90s when this was out, I'm sure that there would be so many things like 90s unrealistic, a woman who's powerful than all the men, blah, 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 blah. And that would have been a thing. So like it's one of those things where we can recognize where he was trying. But we can also recognize where he failed. And that was a lot of this where we were just like, oh, he tried to do something and then he didn't ask enough questions at the time.
Yeah, I think a lot of it was like the intentions were there. Yeah. And I think a lot of times people pick up on the intentions more so than the actual work. And they're like, oh, he's done all these great things. And it's like the intention was there, but he didn't follow through with a lot of it. So
So yes, it was sexist in the way many things were sexist back then. And we are very excited with the new TV show and what it's doing to fix a lot of the issues we saw. So that's why we enjoyed the TV show so much. And I'm sure if we record the episodes in another 10 years, we're going to be like, oh my gosh, that first season. Yeah, we're going to believe like, they did this. Like,
Laura and Hannah are extremely sexist. That's what we said.
I mean, 10 years ago when I was 21, I was probably sexist. So just we're growing as people. I would hope that if Robert Jordan were the age, I would hope Jordan 2022 would write a very different novel series than what he wrote in the 90s. And we can recognize the difference.
Sure.
So, but yes, Turtle Mountain Kombucha, Robert Jordan was sexist. And then this is still pretty random. Tipsy Tropes asked us, how well did Brandon Sanderson do in the last 3 books?
Honestly, I give Brandon Sanderson so much credit because what a difficult job. How can you expect someone to jump in at that point in a series and try to finish up such an epic story? I think Brandon Sanderson did a great job.
Yes.
I as far as the work that he had to do, I give him all the credit in the world because that is just such a feat. And great job, Brandon Sanderson. I think we often had times with these Brandon Sanderson, Robert Jordan books, the 3 at the end that we were like, okay, this is too rushed, or we would like this to happen, or we would have liked this to happen. But overall, I think the 2 of us really enjoyed Sanderson's writing. I've said multiple times that I prefer Sanderson's writing and that I will read Sanderson's solo work. So there's that. And I think Hannah's the same, that you really just give Sanderson a lot of credit for what he did.
Yes, it is not easy to come into a series at the final, especially when it was as beloved as Robert Jordan's work was by the time he got to it. And I give him a lot of credit for taking over the mantle, for dealing with a lot of those things. And I think that there were definitely points where we had critiques of Sanderson, but it never came from a like, oh my gosh, he's ruining the series. It was like, oh, you can feel on the page he doesn't fully understand a character. Which is often hard to do. Like if I were trying to do this, would I be able to give full-fledged like characteristics that Robert Jordan had, that Brandon Sanderson had? I think sometimes like this is not a Sanderson fault. This is an editor fault, where sometimes if the language felt too different, then that was pretty jarring. But he was also went on record like, I didn't write like Robert Jordan because I knew the book would be worse. Like, I tried to write the best Wheel of Time book I possibly could. And because I had to do that, it wasn't a perfect Robert Jordan novel. And those are technically two very different things. So I think he's very open with how hard this was going to be. I think that he managed expectations well. And I think he did a great job. And like, yes, I wish. And
honestly, his understanding of the series is very, very good. Like of the characters, we are saying, oh, we don't think he understands this character or that character before. But honestly, I don't know of anyone that probably understands the ins and outs of this series as well as Brandon Sanderson does. He's a huge fan.
Yes. And so we really respect what he did. And I think he did a great job. And great. And then
we'll be checking out his stuff. So
yeah, we will. We both want to read an actual Sanderson novel. I told my roommate I was sad that this was my first Sanderson just because I did enjoy the book so much. Yeah. And then final questions before the spoilers from me, Laura. Who was your favorite character and why?
So I think my favorite character was probably, so early on it was for sure Perrin. I was all about Perrin. But I think my favorite character, if I look back at the series as a whole, I will say my favorite character was Moiraine.
I thought it was going to be that for you.
I was tempted to say Egwene, but early on Egwene, I was not as big of a fan of. But Moiraine was a character throughout the series that I just really enjoyed. Are we going to get into spoiler territory soon? Or?
We will. We can do the first half where we'll just do, my favorite was Egwene. I'm a sucker for a strong female character who learns along the way. That's how I live my life. So it felt very much on par with how I want to be. And I really looked up to Egwene and really liked where a lot of her character went into, not everything. But I would say that I understand why Moiraine was one of your favorite characters. I really enjoyed her. And yes. So with that said, guys,
stop listening if you're avoiding spoilers.
Yes. We hope you enjoyed this. Remember to rate and review and subscribe to us, and make sure you will pick up your iHunt copy. We'll repeat this at the end, of course, but for all the people who just got into the beginning portions, pick up iHunt. We're covering it for Indie Intermission by Olivia Hill. It's great so far. I'm enjoying it, and we'll talk about that next week. So guys, good talking to you. We're about to get into spoilers.
Here come the spoilers
right now. Can you believe that?
Can you believe that they killed off Tom right after they revealed that he was Elaine's father? And Min's. No. In the shock of the century.
How did we not know this?
Called it early on.
So Laura, why don't we go a little bit more in depth about what you loved and what you hated about Moiraine?
So honestly, I didn't really hate much except the way that the story ended for Moiraine. So I am someone who loves a character who is kind of working for the greater good. And that's what you get in Moiraine from the beginning. You don't know her motives right away, but you quickly learn that she has been working to try and find the Dragon Reborn to basically save the world. She's been doing this secretly for a long time, and she's someone who is always trying to help others and kind of isn't one of those people that wears her heart on her sleeve. She is very realistic, very straightforward about the reasons why she needs to do things without technically revealing too much information. And I just really appreciate that type of character, and I've just loved Maureen throughout. Basically, I did not enjoy the ending of the series because there was a lot of buildup as to when are we going to have Maureen back? When is Maureen going to come back? And maybe that's just me like missing her because I enjoyed that character so much.
Right.
But I didn't think that she really had the send off that an amazing character like that needed.
I will say I enjoyed Maureen a lot. My like one critique is earlier on in the novels, like she was the one working for the greater good. I thought sometimes like, again, it falls into the whole like feminist text of like randomly Robert Jordan would have her be like, Rand, I promise to do whatever you want as long as you keep me near. And then she acts like a scared little girl where I was like,
sure,
Maureen, I know would be like, fine, I'll do whatever you want me to do, but you'd still see it on her face. Like she's like me, we have no poker face. Well, she does because she's an Aes Sedai, but like you would be able to see the disappointment where a lot of times people would be watching her and they're like, she's running around like a little girl. And I'm like, Maureen doesn't act like that. Like she would do something under duress if it got her like with Rand, because she was very much a character who made sacrifices for people. Yes. But so that was my only critique of her.
And like, I think that the show is handling this character better.
Yes. And they're doing like a better job on the show that I very much appreciate. Cause we both, I think Maureen is our favorite character on the show. No questions asked.
Yeah.
Where it's like, Maureen is someone who like, she is not tender, but she cares. Like, right. And it's done with a sensitivity towards people who are like that I was like, oh, that's what she is in the book. And that's why when I read that happening, I was like, oh, I don't like this. So, yeah, I think overall it's great. And I'm glad that you're her favorite. She's your favorite. I would say for my issues with Egwene, her love interest sucks.
Yeah, for sure.
I do know that Laura's big critiques at beginning Egwene was she is the fairy tale princess.
Yeah, she's the one that wants so much more than this provincial life. And
exactly.
It kind of comes off annoying in the beginning to me.
Yeah, where I kind of saw it as more like I understand a girl who like is in a hometown and she's like, I'm meant for bigger things. I understand why that has fairy tale connotations. I didn't read into that, but also that's like something I think you and I both appreciated as we read through the series was that two people could read these books and have completely different takes, where it was like you picked up on stuff about Nynaeve that I didn't, and that was also what we critiqued was like Robert Jordan often said things and you could pick up and run with it, but he wasn't going to pick up and run with it. He was just going to remind you he said it sometimes. So you picked up on like how caring Nynaeve was, and you were like, she cares. And I was like, no, she doesn't. She's mean. And you're like, oh, but you know, and Egwene, you were like, she wants so much more than this provincial life. She's willing to like let go of everything. And I was like, no, she just thinks she wants bigger and better things. And I think we kind of saw what we pick up in books. And that was like something I enjoyed reading the series with you with, Laura, because you're someone who reads things differently than me. And I don't think
we have different perspectives.
And I don't think,
with Egwene, it was something that like I really enjoyed. Egwene is probably my second favorite character of the series, honestly, at the end, because there is so much growth in that character, and that character is the only one of the series that works extremely hard for every single thing that happens to her, and is also going through a lot of traumatic events, and is the only one that has to like work to get anywhere compared to our three male protagonists who just have things handed to them.
Yes.
So it's really easy to, as a woman, like connect with Egwene and understand like that struggle of actually having to work for things, and then watching other people just like, oh, you just did that. You just figured out how to do this after I've been dream walking all this time. Okay, Perrin. Cool.
Laura will never forgive Perrin for
I will never forgive
knowing
Perrin.
Not to use powers in the dream world.
I will never forgive Perrin.
How dare he? Who was your least favorite character in the book series, Laura?
Fael.
Still, by the end, it was still Fael.
No, honestly, it's Tuon. Tuon is my least favorite character.
Yeah.
But Tuon is a product of really bad, problematic writing. If you're going for which character is just awful, Gawain. and early Fael. So Hannah, Gawain is your least favorite character. Would you like to dive in on that?
I just felt Gawain was really problematic. Well, he was probably the character I hated the most, but I don't know if he's like my least. I mean, Tuon, again, it's like Tuon because Tuon's the worst. But Gawain was also problematic just because like he's just the biggest. It's one of those things where I'm like, oh, in a more interesting world, it's like, hey, the capable character is always going to be held back by this one person. But in this particular world, it's like, yeah, and neither one is ever going to learn a lesson or have any clarity on the situation or have other people from the outside looking in being like, Gawain will be a queen's downfall. Like, there just didn't
character could have been written a lot better though, and still been holding a queen back in a different way. You know, the way that he is written, he doesn't listen to anything, like nothing. Like it's one of those situations you tell him something and he's like, "Yep, got it." You're like, "You sure, Gawain? You sure you got this?" And he's like, "Yep." Goes and does exactly the opposite, and then complains that Rand killed his mother. And it's like, what are you doing here, Gawain? You listen to nothing that anyone says to you, and it's just very annoying.
Right. Yeah. So that's kind of where I was with Gawain. Fael also had her issues. By the end, like it
by
came
the
into
end, you just don't care as much, and there's so much trauma that has happened to Fael that you're like,
you feel bad, like you're gonna kick a puppy that's had a ton of bad stuff happen to it. Like, right. Even though the puppy will bite you at any given time and you don't actually want to live with the puppy, but you just don't want to hurt it.
Barrelane's also bad.
Barrelane's terrible.
A predator. So
that they tried to like be like, no, she wasn't a predator, we promise. And it's like, no, she was a predator.
No, she was.
The sexual politics in this book are terrible. And I
really bad.
Did not like them. So
but Tuon's the worst. So
Tuon's the worst. She kind of won worst character in the book series. But yeah, I think again, sometimes the execution of these books were a little rough. So like we've talked a little bit about this, but do you want to talk more about how things shifted between the first 11 books and the last 3 that you noticed with Brandon Sanderson? I know we said we preferred those, but like anything you want to dive in deeper into with spoilers?
So I don't really have any spoilery takes on this, but my thought was that Brandon Sanderson kind of wrote in a way that the book series was more focused on how the entire world was affected.
Right.
And I liked getting those perspectives from distant lands of, okay, these people are experiencing changes in the weather. These people are experiencing this. How does it affect all these different groups of people? And I think if he would have come in earlier in the series, it would have been very interesting. It's hard when he's that far along to try and develop things like that. But I think that the perspective that we get with Brandon Sanderson is less focused on how our main characters are affected and more on, oh yeah, the whole world's affected by this. And Jordan didn't do that as much. He would say the world was affected, but we would only ever see that Rand was affected or Perrin was affected. So,
or Matt wanted to be affected, but probably wasn't. Or Matt was lucky.
Like, what the heck? I want to get out of this tavern.
How dare you all? Come on.
How do we stop this? So, yeah.
What is the man in the $5,000 suit?
The other thing I noticed was just some of the characters felt a little different. Egwene felt better to me with Sanderson's writing.
Because he appreciated what she had.
I liked that more. I don't feel like I appreciated Matt in the Sanderson world, and I don't feel like I appreciated Nynaeve in the Sanderson world, but what you gonna do?
What you gonna do? You're not gonna do anything. You're not gonna do anything.
I can't go back in time.
But wouldn't it be fun if
how did you feel about Sanderson's jumping in?
I fully agree with a lot of what you're saying. I do think he was very much into the like how real world stakes, were hit different, how everyone was affected. I loved every time we dipped into like real world people, and I wish we'd almost had that more. But like, I just think he was so good at showing the little people. And that's why I'm kind of interested in seeing his stuff, because I think sometimes caste systems are the most important thing in these kind of stories. And So I do agree that there was that like sudden shift and we appreciated that shift.
Mhm.
You're right. He really didn't understand Nynaeve. He really understood Egwene, which is fun when Egwene is your favorite character,
Sure.
but can get annoying for other people, which I do recognize. But I liked that a lot. I hated what he did with Matt after we ended up liking Matt so much.
Yeah,
So
that character had a
was
lot of growth. And then once Sanderson came in, he was very much back to the annoying Matt that we had in the beginning.
Yes.
Just with the accomplishments.
Yes. And like all of a sudden, I don't know, randomly having heists on every other page.
Yeah.
So there were just things like that I didn't love. But you can't win them all. And I very much appreciated the different stakes. I liked seeing Egwene move forward. I like seeing the plot move forward. It just felt like Jordan started spinning his wheels by the time we got into the slog. And I would hate to see how long he would have spun those wheels. Because I don't think it would have been good. So overall, I think it was a good shift. And I'm happy we read it and I'm happy we had those changes in it. And again, there was a difference in the writing style just because there was, but we've talked about that in the unspoilery section. I also wish he had been a little bit better with the Forsaken, because I also felt like even though Jordan wasn't good with the Forsaken either, Jordan at least had them like be a little bit more competent. And by the time we got to
what? I should have mentioned this in characters I was disappointed with, because like the Forsaken actually really disappointed me as characters because they were literally goons. Like I'm just gonna keep saying that they're just goons. Because so many times they would be doing things and I'm just like, you guys don't have a clue. Like talk to each other, communicate a little bit. You guys are just dying and then being reborn and you don't even have a plan here. You can only be attractive. I don't understand your motives and your constant bickering and all of this yelling, and I just thought that they were very, very dumb. Even the characters in what are they called? Oh my gosh, I can't remember it now. Oh my gosh, it's gonna drive me nuts. What is the puppets that we covered with Charles from FTF?
Oh.
What are the villains in
Crystal?
that?
I don't remember.
In the Dark Crystal, what are the villains? They are even more competent than the Forsaken. Like they are much more competent than the Forsaken in the Wheel of Time.
I believe that they are called they're the Sexies,
The Sexies, yes.
Sexies, they are more competent than any of the Forsaken were. I thought the Forsaken could have been done such justice and like subterfuge, because even like
that's why it'd be interesting to have like an author that gets into darker themes cover the Wheel of Time, because they could handle the Forsaken a lot better.
I would agree. Like that you were like, who's more competent? Those people who have a disgusting dinner meal together. Oh, God, so gross.
Yes. Love them.
So
I'm
good.
sad that I could not remember what they were called. I can only
actually
remember Dark Crystal and just picture their dinner meal.
Weirdly, I think I knew it was the Sexies, and I think I might have like mentioned that before I actually looked it up, but don't know why. Hannah can't remember any names of anyone, and for some reason that one was like, well, that one stuck, so cool beans. Another character I was super disappointed with, Lan.
Yeah.
What a wet blanket of a character.
What a build-up for nothing. I mean, and why try to continually tell us this is Aragorn and not follow through on it?
Right? Like, oh God. And to have him in the final books just be a guy who sits in the corner going, you should smile more.
Okay, guys, here's what we're gonna do. Smile.
Smile, though your heart is aching. I had to do a deep voice because Lan, he's not gonna. Is that Nynaeve coming in with the soprano, Laura?
I can't sing that low, so I just don't even try.
Oh, I can. I can't sing that high, so
baritone.
Yeah, that's Lan was such a wet blanket. I was so disappointed
Lan is
in him.
Kind of disappointing. But you know what? If you want that Aragorn character, my suggestion is there's a really good series called The Lord of the Rings.
Oh my gosh, I've
by
never heard of it.
J.R.R.
What is?
Tolkien. So read that instead.
Oh, what's that
if
about?
you want the land character to be more developed. So.
So yeah. This is a question again from Veronica. What's a theory you had at the end that ended up being true? And what are some that were way off? Her example was she was convinced Oliver was going to be Brigitte's future husband, and he was not. It is canon that he is not.
I'm glad that did not work out. Go ahead, Hannah. You answer first.
I never saw. Like I expected Min to be throughout all the books, but you could have like pushed me over with a finger when I found out that she was one of Rand's love interests, like in the first couple books. I was just like, really? Her? Like,
sure.
This capable character is gonna fall in love with Rand? Like, come on.
We learned that she's very capable of secretarial work, but
yeah,
that doesn't
so
do
dumb.
too much.
Yeah, she just doesn't do very much. Something I was right about. I mean, I kind of knew that Egwene was going to be a leader because I was so impressed by her.
Sure.
I don't know. There wasn't much that I was like, ooh, I know all these things, because we kind of go on a wild ride between the first 2 books versus the last 12. Like they just shift so much.
Right.
I didn't see the Matt died, so the horn is back in play again. Like,
yeah, I didn't see that happening.
Yeah,
I
missed it as well. You know,
there were some things that I was happy that I called. I wouldn't say that I had like any theories beyond the Elaine's dad is Tom theory, which just became a bit after a while because it was like, okay, this is obviously not happening. He just wanted to like throw us all for a wild goose chase. But as far as like me like reading on characters and being like, yeah, Varen seems shady, and you know what, she was shady.
You were right.
I was right on that. And then Mazrim Time was shady, and I was right on that one. So I was like proud of myself for being like, I have such great intuition when it comes to the Forsake. But I mean, there were other characters that I was wrong about too. So, and things like I did not expect to happen, and situations I was like, okay, why do we have to do this? But yeah, I did not expect the Moraine and Tom romance at all. That was weird.
That was weird.
I would say that the relationships with Rand, I was not that shocked by, but it was still annoying.
Will never be for Rand and any woman. Yeah. Rand should have just died alone and let it go.
I wouldn't say that it was like a super shock, but I didn't see the Matt and Tuan thing happening, and I wish it wouldn't have.
You and me both, sister.
Yeah. What else was surprising? That whole heist to get Moraine back was very cool, though.
Yeah, that was cool.
I also really enjoyed all of the situations with them going through like the arches and like seeing the different challenges when they were becoming Aes Sedai. I didn't really know how that was all going to play out, and it was kind of cool to see that.
Yeah,
it was something I didn't expect, and I thought was well done.
I really liked when they kind of played with like the whole wheel thing, where they like went through these things and they saw different lives, different futures, different pasts, different everything. I love when like Rand and all of them saw all the various lives they had lived in book number 2. I wish we had gotten more into like, not to like be so bloviated about it, but even like the Lanfear and Lews Therin relationship, like we don't get a ton of like what all happened there. Like it gets hinted at a lot, and like there are people mentioning stuff, but it's almost like, I guess if there were a prequel of Lews Therin, like in his life, I'd almost be a little bit interested in reading that story.
Right.
Even knowing how it ends, like I would be very interested to see the Lews Therin of it all and like what that world looked like, because apparently it's our future. Who would have thought? Wow. And like seeing the male Aes Sedai go, you know, down the line, and like them try to kill the Dark One, and then and then like tainting the world. Like I think that would have been a really interesting book to read. Just a prologue where we get to meet Lanfear, we get to see their relationship and why it ended, and all of the in-betweens of that. I would really like to read that book because it was interesting.
There is the prequel, New Spring.
I'm not gonna read that.
Emmons Field. That sounds very, very good.
Are you going to read it, Laura?
I have it.
Oh, you do have it. I know, but are you going to read
I have it? I have the entire series in the mass market paperbacks with my beloved drawn art on the front. Not my art, but
probably Laura's favorite thing about the entire series is the book
honestly,
jackets.
yes, is those covers. They're amazing. So good.
Just so as everyone knows. But yeah, I think like there were so many things about this book that it wasn't easy or hard to call. It was just kind of bizarre a lot of the time.
Yeah, and that's probably the best way to describe it is there's not like any specific things that we can pick out and be like, oh yeah, we totally called it. And I don't know that we're the type of people that are necessarily fishing for that kind of thing either. For like things that should be like, oh, I think this is gonna happen, or this is totally gonna happen. I have to read 5 books to find out. But I think we were more kind of taking it book by book and just being like, oh, okay, well, I could see in the next book this happening,
right?
And then it just didn't play out that way. I'm like, okay, well, it didn't.
Yeah, and I mean,
that was weird.
At the beginning of our episodes, like the 4th episode we did use as a wrap up for like the first 2 to 3 books, I want to say.
Okay.
And then we started breaking down the plot episodes because we were like, there's so much plot, we can't keep doing this.
Yeah.
And so we did have a couple of episodes where we kept trying to like call things, but this was also like a book series that I didn't mind reading on spoilers, and actually like I preferred it so I could like hit the plot beats in my head. And I actually pride myself on being someone who can usually call books. Like I'm actually pretty good at these books. Not a thought went into my head. Like I was just like, here for the experience.
Yeah.
Talk to you later. Bye.
Yeah.
Yeah, it never really hit me like, oh my gosh, I need to know what happens next, and I need to do this, and I need to do this, and all that stuff. So,
and there definitely are series that we do get into like that, where we're like, I have to know what happens next. Nobody tell me anything about this. So this is just not one of them. We were just like pretty content with taking it slow and just kind of being like, meh, this might happen. And it didn't. Okay.
This is a fun question from Veronica. What's the moment you started liking Matt's story?
I think it was so he wasn't in book 4 very much. Was that the one?
He wasn't in book. So book 1 and 2, he's being hurt by the dagger. And then in book 3 is when they heal him from the dagger.
Very little Rand, correct?
Yes.
And that's a book that I enjoyed a lot. The Dragon Reborn.
Yes.
Shadow Rising is where we get Avienda and that ridiculous jaunt into the cave. And that was actually my favorite book.
Ridiculous jaunt and all.
Yeah. But Matt's back in that one, correct?
I believe so, yes.
So I think it was actually in that book that I started to like Matt.
Yeah, I think book 4 for me as well. I think that was when he started like having to go on travels with Rand.
He had to be away from Rand more too, though. It was the beginning of the end of him and Rand constantly being together.
But I actually really enjoyed them at the beginning because it was kind of showing like how big of a deal the whole Rand being the Dragon Reborn was, because you got to see like how people who he grew up with his entire life treated him. Right. And that was very interesting. And we hated it, but now knowing where Matt goes at the end of it, I think even rereading it, I'd be like, God, Matt, you're so stupid. Just learn your lesson already.
Right.
But we really enjoyed him. Like, I remember when he first got healed from the dagger, you and I were still annoyed with him because he was walking around being like, I'm going to be everyone.
Shit.
And then finally, when we got to see him as more like an active character in the plot, not just reacting to a bunch of people, we got to liking him a lot more. And we were like, oh my gosh, I think I'm starting to like Matt. Like he has points and he's just wants to do what he wants to do. And that's not such a bad thing, you know?
Right.
So I think that was that. And there was a second part to this question, which is, when did we start hating Perrin?
Fael. When Fael came in.
I don't even know if it was that for me. I think it was after they got married. I started hating Perrin, like, because I didn't hate Perrin in Edmund's Field when he returned and he was like fighting the White Cloaks and then fighting the Trollocs and he was being the leader of it all. I didn't
like him then. I think when he and Fael kind of entered into a relationship is when it was the beginning of Perrin's downfall for me.
Okay,
I also think that this character just was not what I expected, and I wanted more of his powers. I wanted more of that deeper, like, oh, this is like people have become trapped in the dream world type situation. What happens with Elias? What happens with Noel? That all that kind of stuff. Or Gnome is the one, right? Gnome.
Yeah.
And to kind of delve more into that than we ever did, Robert Jordan kind of threw that away pretty early on and focused more on Perrin's relationships with women, which whatever, that's a take to have. But I think I wanted more of the fantasy of that character than we ever got. And he became more of a political and romantic figure. And he was not good in either of those situations for me, honestly.
I would definitely agree with that. I didn't mind him as much in the political figures sometimes. Like I really liked him in Edmund's Field. I really liked him fighting with all the farmers. I really liked the reluctant hero of him because I
like the idea of it, but I don't like how it was carried out.
And that's fair. I think it's very like, that's a good take to have. I think I just liked him for a little bit longer because I still had hopes for him kind of being the beleaguered, like running away from your powers, never using them, which is a character that we don't see very often. And I think I would have been interested in that, but it felt like Robert Jordan was just getting away with all the wolf stuff because he kind of forgot about it.
Yeah.
It didn't actually feel like he was fighting it. It was more
I think
like
it was one of those things too, with many of the things that we were like excited about that Robert Jordan kind of just like threw it. He had too much going on.
Yeah.
And I think that's often a problem with fantasy books, that the authors create these systems and all these different characters, and they have so many different things happening that even they are not able to like keep all of the things afloat. And so some of the things unfortunately have to get lost to sea.
You mean there are so many kids in the book?
Yeah, so many characters. Look, let's turn the sound up. You know I think it's time for a character roundup.
Character roundup.
Every now and then I just do that.
Yes.
Grandkid roundup.
Grandkid roundup. Cousin Dolores can hear a pin drop. Camila shapeshifts. Antonio gets his gifts today. My older sisters, Isabella
and Lisa. This is the Encanto soundtrack.
One song, one's graceful. She grows the flowers, the town goes wild. She's the perfect. She's the perfect golden child. Okay.
He's super strong.
The beauty and
the brawn can do no
wrong. Okay, sorry. This is not our Encanto podcast. That's next week. No.
I mean, I would be down for that.
I know. Okay, so yeah, I think it's interesting that we both were kind of like, and then by the end, I think Laura's take on Perrin was the best. He just kind of got everything handed to him at the end, didn't have to work for anything, became like political in a stupid way. Like it wasn't even the interesting way where it's like, he just became like the leader of all of Edmund's Field, but didn't have any conflict with anyone over that. It's all fake conflict. Like it was like fake conflict with Elaine. It's fake conflict with Rand. Like there wasn't as much push and pull because no matter who Perrin was fighting with, I never felt like he had any power in the situation. He kind of just got what he wanted. Like it was never a like, I want this, I'm fighting for this, and so I'm willing to go up against you. It was kind of like a, well, I have to because they told me I had to. So here we are. And it's just like,
okay.
Do
you even want to be here? Like,
yeah. And
it was like too much reluctance.
Well, and I feel like if anyone, like if Tam was ever like, you know, Perrin, I've been thinking about it and I might want to be a leader, Perrin would immediately be like, okay, thank God, here you go. Like,
yeah, I'm out of here. Let's go, Fayo.
Like, even a reluctant hero is supposed to be someone who is like, it can only be me.
Still
like,
feels like, okay, well, I'm still obligated to do this.
And then one question for you, Laura, like, what would you have loved to see change in the novels and like spoiler version?
Spoiler version. Honestly, I would have liked more diversity in this, but that's not a spoiler. As far as spoilers go, I think I would have liked to just had more of certain characters' storylines. That we've talked about this many times, but like Min's character was not developed enough for me. I thought that was a really interesting character early on. especially with all of her visions. That was kind of just thrown away. Perrin's story with his wolf dreams and wolf connection, wolf brother thing, kind of thrown away. I think Nynaeve could have been a better character, but unfortunately, a lot of these women have to undergo trauma, including Nynaeve, and they're just, a lot of the character traits that we appreciate tend to be thrown away.
Yeah.
As Robert Jordan kind of like forgets about them or just has too much going on and wants to focus on other things. And I think if he would have just not focused on as much, like not focused on as much, I mean, not spread out as much. Right. If he would have focused on things a little more and not tried to expand as much, maybe it would have been better. I also, this is very spoilery, but I would have liked it if Rand just died at the end.
Yeah, I would have liked it if Rand died. I would have wanted him to die. Like, I thought that was going to be the ending, and it wasn't. Instead, we had to see Egwene die. Like,
I would have been fine with Rand just dying.
Yeah, he was open to it. And I think that it's always interesting to see a character who is open to dying and then walks into that moment and lets it go. But I do think there's a little bit like of the main character can't die. And it's like, but he could. Right. Like, if what we know from Lews Therin is like Lews Therin ended up having to kill himself because he had already killed everyone else in his life. So wouldn't it have been interesting to kind of see like the wheel turn this way where it's like, well, I can sacrifice myself and I can let everyone else around me live. And wouldn't that have been interesting if he, had been able to just like balefire enough to save Egwene and that's it. And like, and then kill Taim in this, or something like that, where it wasn't just all for nothing on many characters' heads that we loved, all the most capable, most interesting characters dying besides Nynaeve, who got like shoved into the least capableness of it all. And we got to like actually see people. No, I agree with everything you're saying. And like we said, we've had critiques of this. Fix the Forsaken, more diversity, fix Nynaeve.
Yeah, those are not hot takes by any means. Other people have said them, but I think for a spoiler one, I would have just like Rand to die. Yeah. What about you, Hannah?
I would agree. I wanted Rand to die. I wanted the Queen to live because I just felt like she should have been able to after being one of the most capable characters. It felt like
I was ready to throw the book out.
Yeah. I just think like it's really interesting that like in this character who is supposed to die, he gets to live, and he's supposed to be the most capable character, but somehow it became Egwene, and then so she has to die because she's the most capable character. And I just don't think it's like, I don't know. I think it would have been interesting to see her like lose the love of her life and see her still be strong. Right. But like Rand gets to live and he gets 3 loves of his life and he gets babes. Like, it doesn't make sense all the time. I would have also I wish they brought Moiraine back earlier. And I wish that there just hadn't been so much female trauma and like female women, like female persons needing to like, Nynaeve's the strongest character, but now she's not. And like, it felt like any time
there's a lot of contradictory moments in this series for sure, where we hear all the time how Nynaeve is the strongest that has ever come to the Aes Sedai, ever come to the White Tower. And then like a chapter later, they're like, this person is much stronger than Nynaeve. Like, why do you keep saying that Nynaeve's the strongest then? Like, quit saying that then.
Right.
Don't bring it up.
Quit talking about how strong she is if she actually isn't that strong. It doesn't make sense. And it's not very good. And I just don't always get a lot of this book when it comes to kind of stuff like that. I'm like, I think
another thing too, going off of what you're saying about like all the female characters continually struggling, I think it would have been something that I would have liked if we didn't have to constantly see that. If we could have kind of changed this around a little bit, where it was like, okay, something's going to happen to Swan Sanche, but maybe she doesn't lose her powers and isn't like, I don't know. A lot of this seemed off. For me. And I think the take of it being a super feminist text and all that is very misguided because of the way that the characters are handled, especially in those situations like that.
I definitely agree with all of that. And like, along with that, I just felt like sometimes Robert Jordan built such a unique world, but I think a failing in high fantasy is like people's answers to every single book is like, instead of sitting with the characters in a high fantasy it's sometimes just adding in more characters. And I feel like sometimes that led to more faults where it's like, oh, Sanche, super strong. We're going to strip her of all her powers. And then we're going to make her deal with women who are probably stronger than her anyway. And it's like, why are we doing that? And then Nynaeve, they're like, well, we had Nynaeve. She's the strongest character. What's the next interesting thing? More strong characters. But now they're coming from outside sources who didn't train with the Aes Sedai. And I'm like, okay, so is there going to be an analysis about how the Aes Sedai work under a very specific structure that fails them? And that's why they're forgetting about all these strong wilders because they cannot get over age specifications. And it's like, no, they're just stronger than Nynaeve. And it's like, well, but you didn't do the one interesting thing you could have done, which is like Nynaeve is so strong. And then she's meeting with all these wilders who are just as strong as she is. And they're like, hey, the power structure is the issue, not us. And no, that's not how this is going to work. That's not what we were talking about. Like all of that stuff kind of baffled me. And it's definitely stuff I would have changed.
Agreed. Completely agree with that.
Is there anything else that you would have changed? Better polygamy stories.
Yeah, for sure. I think the relationships in general were not great in this series.
Yeah.
Some of them were too drawn out. Some of them didn't make sense. Some of them were too fast. I don't think Robert Jordan, he's a fantasy writer for sure, but he's not a very good romance writer.
No.
He tries to write relationships and doesn't do it well. The relationships that he's able to write well are actually the friendships. And the romance relationships that he kept trying to make happen in this were just bad. They just didn't work for me. I would have liked to maybe have had just a lot less of the romance that we had in this. I don't think we needed all the crap with Morghese. We did not need all of her romances. We honestly did not need Swan and Gareth. We did not need that. We did not need Maureen and Tom. We did not need that. We did not need constantly finding out about Rand and his polygamy situation. We did not need all of that. I'm fine if you want to have those types of relationships, but write them better and don't make them take up so much space in this series.
Right.
Because you're not writing them well.
I agree with that wholeheartedly. I would also say that, like, if you're going to do a high fantasy novel with people of different cultures, respect those cultures first.
Do some research.
Yeah, do your research. Write from a respectful, where like these people are just as intelligent as the people of Western ideals. These people have their own power structures. People are not like, it's not Western or wrong. And it often felt when reading this book that it was Western or wrong.
Yes.
And I hated that about these books. I thought they were incredibly problematic and they went into very unhealthy tropes. And those were our least favorite parts of the novel.
Yes.
Yes. So agreed. That is definitely what we would change.
Yeah. And then just generally, we both would like more diversity in terms of like all sorts of different characters. And you like, honestly, even just on a baseline level of, okay, ugly characters, like not all the characters need to be beautiful. We don't need to mention all the time that poor Oliver is ugly. Like, no, everyone looks different.
And it's
come on.
It's literally no secret that the 90s were incredibly fat phobic. Look at any like famous woman in the 90s and you could literally like put an inch like round hole and you have her wrist. Like it's really gross to see like who people thought were fat back then. And every single girl in this book was waif thin with giant boobs unless they were evil and then they were fat. So, you know, just if you're writing a book, watch for your internalized isms or phobias, because those are phobias, you know, those are just not always good. And they were swimming in Robert Jordan's books. And so, Laura, I have one more question for you, and it is from Veronica. And the question is, how much are the babes spoiled?
How much are the babes spoiled?
In real life. Like if this continued and the babes were born, how spoiled would they be?
I mean, honestly, I don't see Rand as being a very devoted parent.
Rand will never spend time with those children. No. None of his children. They will all grow up.
They will get no attention. I don't foresee Min having children. That doesn't seem.
I think she's going to travel around him with him being his secretary.
She'll just be like his companion all the time.
Yeah.
And I think that the other children will never see Rand.
No, I think if we
I don't think they'll be that spoiled. They'll just be annoying like Elaine. They'll grow up in royalty. So, I mean, all the spoils that are associated with being royalty. But
there was an interesting thing I learned. Like I was listening to a TikTok about Twilight, and they were talking about like how messed up Renesmee was going to be when she grew up, because literally she grows up way too fast. So she can marry Jacob. Twilight spoilers. B, her parents literally do not care about her that much. They care about each other, and that's about it. And C, like everyone in her life is obsessed with her mother, including her. So there's this need to like go after her mom and get validation and love from her mother. And like at some point in her life, she is going to learn that she is like sloppy seconds to her own mother for the man she will love for the rest of her life. And like, even if he's like, well, no, I loved your mother first because you were going to be inside her. It was like, no, that's not how she will feel at the end of the day. So I do think like if there was ever a continuation of these novels, these kids are going to be so messed up because their mothers are going to be so up Rand's butt. Rand is not going to care about them. And everything they do is going to be in the shadow of their father, the dragon reborn, in the most toxic way, because Rand is not going to give two craps about his kids. And so, the babes are not that. So I think Elaine will spoil her babes in the way she's going to be like, you guys are the best. They're just going to be deluded. They're just going to be like, you guys are the best children ever. And you're so smart and you're so,
As far as royalty goes, I mean, if you've watched The Crown, you know that they don't always, just because they are rich and get things handed to them, they don't always have the most fantastic upbringings. So I think it's probably a disconnected childhood where they don't really have the relationships or the support that they need, and they're not going to really be that spoiled.
No. So that is the last question, and a little bit of a bummer. Laura, do you have any questions? Do you have any questions?
Let me think. Hannah, what book was your favorite out of the series, and what was your least favorite?
I would probably say that, now you're asking me to remember specifics. I'd probably say the third or the fifth were my favorite.
Okay.
I really loved the direction Robert Jordan took in the third book. It felt like such a gear shift. It was so unexpected for me. I think the fourth is your favorite. That's my guess anyway. You've talked about it, but I think the fourth was also like a really good one for me, but there was just something about the third one. And then I think the ramping up in the fifth one, I was also very interested in. And those were just so unique in this context of 14 book series. Very much. Yes. I think one of the worst
Fires of Heaven is my second favorite.
Oh, okay. Perfect. So and then my least favorite, it had to be like the slog, although I did enjoy book 9. I remember book 10 was really rough for me. That was about where I was like, isn't that the one where it's like Perrin continues to search for Fael?
Perrin continues to search for Fael.
Yeah. And it was just so bad. It was so horrible. Nothing happened. Like even in book 9, which I think might've been Laura's least favorite, I forget. There was the heist, and I was like, I can get behind like a heist of like Matt breaking out of the castle. This is fun. And I could like delude myself that the rest of the book didn't happen. Book 10, nothing happened, and you felt it. What about you?
Winter's Heart was my least favorite. And I think the book following that was second least favorite because it was just very hard to get through. Winter's Heart was hard to get through. And then it had, for me, a lot of problematic things. I was unable to overlook them with the fun parts of the novel. I just could not. And then when you get into the book following it, it was just such a drag, and I had a really hard time with it. But 3, 4, 5 were good books. 4, 5 were my favorites. So.
I think it's probably, for me, it's probably 5, 3, 4
I'm not gonna go through all of those.
6, 2, 1. I couldn't go through all of them. Those are the beginnings of it. No. We're not gonna. You know what? No, listen to Blank Check if you want people to rate all the books. We're not gonna do that. Anything?
The Sanderson ones were good too.
I did like the Sanderson ones.
Hard to jump in at that point.
Yes, very much so. Okay, do you have anything left, Laura? Any final notes on before we close out this season?
I don't actually. I can't think of anything at the moment, but
I just want to thank all the people who've listened with us for the
Yeah,
past
for sure.
year and a couple months. This was our first season of the show. We walked in blindly to Wheel of Time. Lots of people laughed at us, rightfully so. After this journey, we feel humbled.
Who's laughing now?
Yeah, I mean, we
Still
finished,
you.
so still you, and we're crying. No, but we I don't know if we could have picked a better start to this show because it was so interesting. It let us
the timing of it was really good with the show and everything. So
people are so welcoming in this community. I think it was for Laura and my vibe, which is sarcasticness. I think it's great to have that. And I think that the Wheel of Time, people are pretty open to us joking about it. They're in on the joke.
Sure.
We've said that a lot. And the best people who are fans of the show are in on the joke and they laugh along with us and they understand that we can many parts of this novel series with feeling bogged down by it. And I think the worst thing is people are we can feel when you're sad, and we can feel that you guys probably one book a month was a lot for this type of series.
Right.
And yeah. And so we just appreciate you guys coming on this journey with us, reading along. If you did a reread or just being nope, I'm not going to read the series anymore. I'm going to let Hannah and Lauren tell me all about it. And that's it. So I just wanted to say that we really appreciate you guys at the end of this season. We hope you continue on with us into
for sure.
season 2, blazing through the Poppy Wars, through our indie intermission and beyond, because we really think we have great stuff coming down the pipeline. We're really excited for the shift. We cannot wait to blaze through the Poppy Wars. I really think we're going to enjoy our conversation of I Hunt. We've had some wonderful content with Olivia Hill's been amazing as we enter into indie intermission.
For sure.
And we're just so appreciative of everyone. So I just wanted to take a moment at the end of season 1, our first season ever of the show, to thank everyone for Shai'tan on the Wheel of Time with us. We hope you enjoyed it. We hope you guys enjoy us. And it's sad leaving this kind of safety net, but I think that it will breed great things once we get done with the Wheel of Time. So
I think that it'll be a good change. And I think that going forward, we're going to be trying some different things, some different series, and we hope that you stick it out with us. And we're sorry if Wheel of Time is your absolute favorite and we were constantly being hard on it, but to each their own. Everybody has a different take. There are people who do not enjoy Fredrik Backman, and I guess that's okay. It's hard for me to
I guess that's okay.
It's hard for me to understand, but that's probably how huge Wheel of Time fans feel about the show. But no, in all seriousness, if you really enjoy Wheel of Time and you stuck it out listening to this podcast and you enjoy our podcast, we really appreciate you just, coming along for the journey with us and taking it all with a grain of salt and not, being all upset and ditching us early on. It's something that we probably would have read very differently had we not been doing a podcast and going in depth. So we really appreciate it. It was a good series to start off on. The timing was great with the TV show, and everything Hannah said stands true, that we're just really appreciative of all the support that we've gotten. So thank you so much.
And with that said, I think it is time to close the chapter and no longer shite on the Wheel of Time. So please remember to rate, review, and subscribe to us. Rating, reviewing, and subscribing gets people to join us in season 2 when we cover the Poppy Wars come July. So make sure you get your copy of that. Like I said, make sure you're picking up I Hunt and reach out to us on all the social platforms. We are at OWWR Pod. That is our pod. And you can email us at ourpod@gmail.com. We're so excited to continue this journey with you and to start something new. Bye.
Bye.